My name is Rick Smooth, and I'm here at the PPCW show. And I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine that I just met earlier. He's a good guy, man, with George Mayfield. George, how you doing today, man?
I'm fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for asking, man. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the tapes that he's been archiving and doing his thing with. So, George, you want to tell all the wrestling fans out there what you've been doing?
Well, first of all, I've been a wrestling fan since about 1963. Buffalo, New York, saw the original Sheik, Ed Farhat, stabbing Bobo Brazil with a pencil, and it scared me to death, and I was hooked. And since then, I've always been a wrestling fan. Loved the more violent wrestling, found out about Japanese wrestling in the 90s, went to the 1994 Tokyo Dome show, and was hooked. At that point, it was that type of wrestling, and then I found out about the All Japan women, and I liked the women even more than the men. I went to the Ladies Dome show in November of '94, and at that point I was hooked. I was going every January for the New Japan show, and they had a series of shows. I would always go at that point, and with the internet just starting to take off, people would ask me about it, and I would say, hey, how would you like to go to Japan with me? So at that point, I started taking people to Japan on tours, and it just took off from there. Everybody loved it. You know?
That's amazing, George. So I got to ask you, so I remember that time period for pro wrestling, and I remember like 94, 95-ish, and you're talking about that in Japan. What was different about the Japanese wrestling at that time period than, let's say, the WWE?
It was crazy. You had fire matches. It was just crazy. It's things that I had never seen before and couldn't imagine. I went to 2 exploding ring matches, and it was just it was just crazy. Fire matches, and it was crazy.
Wow, that's amazing. So as far as like what you've been doing, as far as the tapes and the different compilations that you've made, what do you think is kind of the art of doing all this stuff?
The art, it's time consuming, I can tell you that much. I bought a VCR when they first came out in 1979, and I videotaped everything. Can we just hold on for a minute?
Yeah.
Can we hold for a minute? Yeah.
All right, so George, I got to ask you, what's your favorite era of pro wrestling? Like, if you had to zoom in with doing what you're doing, and you made a best of, like, the certain time period that every person must see, what would it be?
As much as I love Japanese wrestling because I saw things I had never seen before, I grew up with the Sheik, and I really thought wrestling was real. I was probably maybe 30 years old and did a show. I just attended a show in Buffalo, and the Sheik and Abdullah Farouk were walking. We went in the back to have wrestlers autograph some pictures for us, and they were still in the dressing room, but they came outside the dressing room, and the Sheik and Abdullah Farouk walked by us, and we saw him coming in, and we dropped our heads because we didn't want to make eye contact with him because we were scared of the Sheik. They walked maybe 20 feet, turned around and said, boo. Me and my sisters broke for the car, running to the car. I couldn't get my key in the door to unlock that because I was scared to death. And I mean, I'm a grown man. I'm 30 years old, but I'm thinking the Sheik was really, I'd seen him stab Bobo Brazil so many times that it scared me to death. And once I got beyond that and realized that it was what it was, that's been 30, 35 years. I'm 66. That's probably been like 36, 37 years. And I still remember because I thought wrestling was real. As much as violent as it was in Japan, I still thought it was real, and it scared me. And me and my sisters, we still talk about being scared, trying to get in the car because we thought the Sheik was going to hurt us. He was going to do something to us, But that era on the 70s, 60s, 70s, yes, that was.
What do you think was so different about that era, like in the 60s and the 70s, compared to, let's say, when it really blew up in the 80s?
They didn't really do many interviews, but it was because the Sheik never talked. He never spoke. He just, and then along came Abdullah the Butcher with almost the same gimmick that was believable, and it was just believable. Yeah. They didn't wrestle the way they did. Like Eddie Guerrero and these guys. It wasn't that kind of wrestling, but we had nothing to compare it to, and that was all we saw, and I was happy with it.
Yeah, there's something about seeing those kinds of guys like that. You know, you don't want to run into at a bar or something like that. You know, these guys will trash you. You know what I mean?
No way. Because, like I said, we believed it was real. You know, and then I found out that the Sheik and Bobo Brazil were good friends and whatever. Like, huh? What? Come on! It kind of like took that away. You know, because you thought it was just different.
I've always heard in that era a lot about Tony Atlas. Is there anything you want to say about Tony Atlas in that time period, or?
No, not really. No,
All right.
I like the heels. I like the heels. You know, Tony was always a baby face.
Yeah.
But I like the bad guys. You know, it's something about bad guys.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Well, George, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Pro Wrestling Archives. Peace out.